that we can interact. We can use the features of Teams. If you have questions, you can put it in the notes, and I will get back to you at the end of the session. Yes, let me start. So very pleased to be among you guys for this presentation. What I want to achieve is obviously share a bit on on what we do at International Economics on data analytics, raise your awareness. And like I was telling a few minutes ago, is I would be very pleased if that session helps you to develop some more interest in this area, which is quite interesting. And a brief about myself. I will go quick on it. So I've been 20 years in data analytics, starting at a local company called BAG, where I spent 11 years, and then I moved to Accenture, working, and there I got the opportunity to work on some international projects with leading companies across the world. I was approached then by IBM to work in Africa as a big data specialist, covering also Indian Ocean. And this opportunity gave me the chance to travel in these countries and see, how people are trying to develop solutions around data and trying to make the most of data analytics in their decision making. So building data warehouses, building analytic models, trying to use cognitive tools. We had at IBM what maybe some of you remember, Watson. This was quite interesting and innovative period. And then since 2019, at International Economics, so I lead the development of analytical and statistical tools, and I undertake data analysis, research work, and consultancy in the area of analytics, mostly related to trade and economics. My background is science, but I would say, when you are in the data field, you can work in any industry. So here I'm mostly involved in trade and economics, which was quite new to me in 2019, but it's going well. The agenda, so I'll try to be not too slow, because I know you must be hungry. So I'll try to make the most of the time that we have. But agenda would be a quick introduction to data analytics, looking at some tools, the data architecture, and what is quite important for me to share is a maturity model. I will share about international economics and how we use data in our work, share some use cases, and we'll leave some time for question at the end. So everything related to data analytics, of course, in the background is data that is being captured. And I'm sure you've seen such kind of statistics sharing how much data is being, the volume of data captured has been increasing, right, throughout the years. What an impressive growth. And in 2010, there was only 2 zettabytes. So zettabytes is 21 zeros after the 2. And predicted in 2025 is almost like 181 zettabytes. What kind of data is being captured? Structured data, like surely know about the data being stored in databases. There's also now being stored unstructured data. We have geographic data, real-time data, streaming data, natural language, time series, event data, network data, link data. So all these different forms of data are now being stored. And it's being stored, some are being duplicated, replicated. So there's lots of duplication of data happening. I'm sure even you, when you get a WhatsApp message, it's being forwarded several times, the same file, the same picture, the same information. So yeah, a lot of this is happening. If you were to define data analytics, you get different versions from different sources. Let me share a few that are there on the screen. So Corporate Finance Institute, for them, data analytics is a science of analyzing raw data to make conclusions about that information. Another one, let's take Informatica, is a big company in the data area. So data analytics for them is a pursuit of extracting meaning from the raw data using specialized computer systems. These systems transform, organize, and model the data to draw conclusions and identify patterns. So you have different versions. If you want to kind of draw a simple version for yourself about how to define data analytics, let's do a small exercise. Like I've done it. I want to show it by using data analytics to analyze data analytics by building a small word cloud around, some of the definitions. In this word cloud, what you can see coming as prominent words: analysis, extraction, information, conclusion, raw, process. So you can have your own interpretation of data analytics. And this area, you have so many words and jargons you've heard of, like business intelligence, data science, data analytics, data engineering. There's lots of words. But for data analytics, you can, from the words that you see here, it's mostly like extracting, analyzing information from raw data and drawing your conclusions, right? So it's about pulling information, trying to use raw data and try to get some conclusions out of it, right? Look at a blueprint architecture of analytics. Without going into the complexities, let's look at the 4 different stages, right? On the left, you acquire your data from the different data sources. It can be at rest, it can be streaming, right? It can be different types. You take the data, you organize it in a way. The most common way we hear about data warehouse. You've heard concepts like people use what we call data lakes. So you organize your data. Once organized, you analyze the data, right, using different techniques, tools, even trying to fasten the analysis process. So once you analyze, you're ready to deliver the data. Now, the different ways to deliver the data, it could be traditional reporting, tables, that was mostly used previously. Now you have visual tools to help you, and even have other ways to propagate, to distribute your data, like publishing it through APIs, through portals, where users can consume this information. One important aspect of this architecture, if you look at the bottom, is the manage and govern. Let me take 2 examples to try to illustrate this to you. Say someone comes to you and say that, let's take COVID, that there was only two cases of COVID yesterday in Mauritius. Well, I think you would be surprised, given what's going on these days. You would be surprised, and perhaps your reaction would be, from where you got that information. You start doubting that information because you're not trusting that source. You need to know the source. You need to know how it was collected, and what was the time frame, what were the criteria. So it's important to manage that. You need to be aware of how this data was collected, all this information about the quality, the source, all this is important. Another example, someone comes to you and said, hey, congratulations, I know that your bank balance has increased by 1 million rupees yesterday. Right? Hearing that information, you would be concerned, because how can this person be aware of your account balance being increased? So you would be worried about security of your account balance, your account in the bank. So this is important. So all work around data is important, that there's this manage and govern. You need to form parts of the architecture now. You have complex architectures, but take this as a blueprint: acquire, organize, analyze, and deliver. This is the main steps. If I were to ask you about, I don't know if you can use the chat here to share about how many tools you think are there around to help you in the machine learning, AI, data space. You can think about a number. And when we look at this map here, I think it's quite impressive. So many tools are present, in this area around data. Tools regarding infrastructure, databases, tools to do analysis, visual tools, extraction tools. You have machine learning, AI tools. You have tools tailored for the enterprises, for the industries. You now have open source tools developed by vendors. So there's a quite big landscape of tools that can be used. And I think if you want to specialize in the data area, you shouldn't be specializing on the tools. You need to understand the concepts and be flexible enough to use any tool to do the work. Because now you might have heard people telling that, I'm very agile, I'm well versed with Python, so I am a data scientist. It really doesn't work like that. You need to understand the concept, the basics, and then you choose the tools that you want. Like even you take one area, like data visualization here, in analytics. So there's so many tools, and each tool have their strengths and weaknesses. So depending on what you want to do, then you can adapt and use the tools, right? It's a lot of learning every day, new concepts, new tools, new features. It's quite involving. This slide I wanted to share about, I think this is very important in the data analytics area. It's about the maturity model and how you use the data to help, either your customers or your organizations, different levels. So this is called the maturity model. At the bottom is what we call when we use the data to do descriptive analytics, to try to answer the question of what happened. You use historical data and try to answer this question, what happened? You go further, a bit more mature analysis. You try to explore why did this happen? This is what we call the diagnostic analytics. So here you're mostly providing insight, you're reactive to what happened in the past. When you become more mature, you go into the predictive analytics, you try to be proactive, and what will happen? This is where you can use like machine learning models to try to predict based on a model that has been tested and trained. You can predict what could happen with a certain degree of confidence. You can go further now with the advanced techniques, even going to prescriptive analytics. what should we do about it? The tool will guide you on with advices on what you should do based on these on the data that you have. Now everyone is fond about this, last step that we see here. I'm sure there will be further afterwards. Is the cognitive self-learning analytics area, AI, machine learning. Why don't I? What don't I know? All right, because it's going to look at your data and bring in items that you are not aware of. It would have been difficult for you to know about. Is where you use these deep learning techniques and machine learning techniques. I'm sure Dr. Suraj has been speaking, will speak to you about this area. From my experience, what I can share is the more you go along up in the curve, the more value you're bringing out of the data. And like your data you're becoming more mature in your analysis. And one additional aspect from personal experience is you need data to be able to do the steps at the top level here, like prescriptive, cognitive. You need a lot of data and reliable data to do this. Because if your data is not trustworthy or you have very limited data, you won't be able to do these advanced analytics. This was a short introduction of data analytics. I just took a few concepts that I thought about, it would be interesting for you to know, regarding this area. But let me quickly now share a bit of how we use these techniques and what we do at International Economics. So the International Economics, the company I work at, we're involved in management consultancy. So we do consultancy on projects, mostly related to trade, investment, economic modeling, impact assessments of projects. We are present here since 2013 in Mauritius, and our customers are mostly big donors that really fund interesting projects like EU, the World Bank, UNDP, and UNESCO, World Economic Forum, among others. Okay. These are a bit on the projects that we've been working. Quite a few projects in this limited time of 8 years. We've been working across 7+ countries with over 120 projects. And since I joined in 2019, I've been involved in several interesting projects that I will share about shortly, mostly in Africa and Asia. Just to connect how these are connected, analytics and the trade area. So analytics is all about using the tools and techniques to bring insights to the trade environment, and where we can use that information gathered from all the analytic work and recommend, do consultations, and draw conclusions, and it helps the consultancy work. The type of data that we work with, I think, is different types. The macro data is more aggregated, government-based, all the GDPs indicators, high-level indicators that we hear in the news. This is helpful. We use micro data. Often, this is something that, again, coming from experience, data is not really readily available sometimes. You have to collect it. You want to do to build a model. Often you have some obstacles that you cannot get access to the data to do that work. So some techniques are there, like doing surveys to collect data, or even you would see a lot of portals now selling data, and you need to buy the data to be able to do your analysis. This is the trend nowadays. We use industry data. So if we are working with a private sector, they would have their industry data, and we'll try to get from the different sources. And also private data. A lot of data nowadays is being kept privately in local company databases, they have years and years of data being kept, but it's only for them, and then doing nothing out of this historical information. It's kept private. They don't want to share. They don't know how to use or make use of this to gain insights and help them. But private data, some big companies across the world are making money out of it, and they are developing strategies around their private data. Tools that we use, like I showed to you the landscape, but like I said, at the company, we are very open to tools. So we choose the tools depending on what we need to do, and we're going to go for the best that's available and also the cheapest. So some of the tools you're already perhaps familiar: Tableau for visualization, Power BI. For database work, we use Azure database. For all the machine learning platform, we use Azure. For data collection, we use SurveyMonkey, which is a very good tool for running surveys, Google Forms. And the platforms that we use in our industry, like ITC TradeMap, UN Comtrade, that has a lot of trade data freely available for now. And for doing all the kind of data science coding, we use RStudio and Python to do the work. And at the center, there is a tool here, which is very popular, and you shouldn't be ashamed of using it. It's called Microsoft Excel. It's a great tool and very easy. You can use it to do analysis. Of course, there's some limitations, but you need to use the tool that you feel more comfortable with, right? And then, yeah, other tools like SharePoint and stuff that we use. What we do at International Economics, so let me brief you. If you go on our website, you would see kind of the work that we've been doing. First, we have this platform that we built where we have collected data from different sources, from left to right, and then we collected, filtered, and built a kind of model. So every time we have a new assignment, we use that data from these sources, which is on the cloud, and we keep on nurturing, this model, right? It's the basis of all our analysis. COVID research. This is an important thing that we've done recently related to COVID. We had some time, so we built a COVID research platform where we build dashboards. We're collecting data, running webinars, and trying to make some analysis and give some insights. We've run surveys, collected data around Africa and even Mauritius to understand what's happening. We have some dashboards that we built to give more insights on trade. We've been analyzing Brexit. We've developed some models to forecast what will happen around Brexit, how the exports will change with the EU, all this kind of analysis. And we have those who've done economics in the past. We have a simulation model that we built. So we use this mainly when two countries are negotiating, about these trade agreements between countries. Each one is trying to apply different kind of tax tariffs on the imports of the products. So we built something on R to simulate this so that countries can know that, okay, if I increase 10% tax on sugar, I will gain so much in terms of revenue. And then, again, and what will happen to what would be the impact to other exporters? All these kind of simulations is very helpful to countries when they are negotiating among each other. And also, social media feedback is important. So we do also try to analyze this data. Right. So these are the tools. Let me talk quickly about a few case studies that is interesting. So this was a project in East Africa where the UK government has given money to a company called Trademark East Africa to run a project, right? On the left, you see the aim of Trademark Africa was trying to improve trade in East Africa. And they worked along, as you can see on the map, along the port. So they did some work along the port, improving the port, allowing more ships to come, improving like draining, dredging, and so that bigger ships can come. And then on the yellow road is the northern corridor. So along that road, that transport goods from Mombasa up to Rwanda, as you can see in the map. So they improved that infrastructure. Like there was border posts, the road was in bad shape, there was other obstacles. They did some work around that, so that transport from goods from Mombasa to these countries goes much quicker and safer, right? Because sometimes if you look at some YouTube, even on you would see along this northern corridor, there was a lot of business happening around the borders. People were, there was drugs, prostitution, a lot of people, drivers were leaving their lorries and going, to stay 1-2 days along the borders. So there was a lot of loss. So in this project, we were analyzing the impact of the work of this company Trade Mod as Africa. So we built models to assess the improvement in terms of time, in terms of risk, right? And try to quantify it in terms of money gain. And you can see in the map, we use transit time data. We even looked at events that was happening along this road, like events like calamities, accidents, and other types of flooding, things like that along the roads. And we kind of trying to find any kind of correlation between the transit time and events that was happening. And we did some analysis. If you look at the map, for example, the charts in green and purple, the dotted line is as from when the projects implemented by the company came into place. So before that, if you just look at the map, you see there was a kind of correlation between the transit time and the number of events happening, along the roads. As the project started to implement, it was like there was no association. Like, I think the infrastructure was improved, and the roads were better. So even if there was something happening in that region, perhaps it was not impacting the traffic. So we saw things like that. But I will tell you, it's difficult to sometimes when you back on this type of analysis and to try to go to authorities and tell them this is what we saw, they would question you back because you're kind of pinpointing to them, to the authorities. Perhaps they were doing something wrong. We even look at road conditions, sentiment of people, things like that. So that was quite an interesting project. Another one is again in East Africa, trying to understand what are the food crops or livestock that these countries can focus on. The idea was mostly to improve the trade happening between these countries, like in East Africa, like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. So what we saw is these countries don't trade much among themselves, even if they have the commodities. They prefer to import outside Africa. So, and we looked at these import data. We looked even at forecast models in terms of production and demand. At the bottom, you can see that eventually what is happening is the local demand in these countries will rise, but the production won't match the need. So that would increase import from other countries. So this was the work done in this area. And on the right, you can see we try to build some models, right? A methodology to try to identify by scoring, which are the main products these countries should focus, like bananas, beans, beef, maize, and vegetables came on top. Another project related to COVID recently, this was for Indonesia, trying to see what was the impact, because Indonesia is a big player in the food and beverage market, and they produce a lot, they export a lot. So trying to understand, what was the impact of COVID. So that was a study we've completed. But here I just wanted to show the type of analysis we do using data. For example, on the right, you see Indonesia, how it contributes to other countries and in which sectors. Like you see Indonesia, most of the value addition to the food it produces goes to India. And that goes to hotels and restaurants, okay? The next one is China. And this doesn't go to hotels, but you can see in the green spots, it goes to households in China, okay? So this is how you can better understand, when COVID is impacting markets, how the country under study will also be impacted. On the left is, I won't go into technical, but it just shows you upstream and downstream participation. So what is upstream is what you contribute to other countries, and downstream is what you bring into your country and then produce as goods to be consumed in your country. So we see here, like Indonesia is a country that mostly exports its food sector to other countries, right? And that is not the same as higher level developed countries like Singapore, Hong Kong, Ireland, that mostly they bring in raw materials, food materials, and then they convert it into finished products, either to be consumed or to be exported after. So this is kind of analysis we do is quite specific and technical. So I won't go into more details. I think my last case study would be a simple, this is called an M&E tool. You have these big projects, like you hear about SDG goals, what will happen by 2030. You recently heard about COP26, they have goals set. But you need to monitor where the progress, year by year on whether these countries are reaching their goals. So this is a tool, this was built for Cambodia, where actually we tracked how they are progressing towards their goals. So you do collections you follow activities, and they have the power to tick off all the activities that they completed in terms of short-term goals, and this contributes to higher level goals. And there's dashboards and stuff, right? This kind of tools we use. That's it in terms of use cases that we use. There are more, but I'm conscious of the time. I wanted to share this, and happy if you want to ask me any questions regarding what I've showed in terms of some basic concepts around data analytics and how we are applying it in our area, in our work. Okay, and hope you found it interesting. And yeah, I'm just going to look at the chat now. If you can ask me any question, right? I'm happy to answer. If please don't hesitate, or share your views regarding what has been shared in this presentation. Please don't be shy. Go for it. Maybe everyone is hungry, so.
They are usually shy.
Huh?
You're
very shy.
Yeah, usually. Okay.
Okay. No, so
anyways,
if you're shy, if you're shy, please type in the questions. It's okay. I think even if there's not something not clear, I'm happy to guide you or clarify.
But Neetish, while the students maybe are thinking about some questions, I just want to thank you first. And definitely there is a very strong overlap between what we have been doing, talking like in the lecture. For example, you were talking about those types of analytics, descriptive, prescriptive. You know, I talk about this in during the first sessions. Okay, but it was good that you talk about the AI, machine learning, like this cognitive analytics, which I didn't really discuss. Just to give you the context, right now the students are learning about from the data source to a data warehouse. The module right now, it's about data warehouse and BI. Okay.
Okay.
So they are in this kind of learning stage concerned with ETL, with data modeling and so on. Okay. So it's good that you have shown those very, like I would say, like very big projects, countrywide projects. Okay, I don't know if ever they can contact you, because right now they have been asked to do one coursework where they need to find some kind of case study of data use and try to propose, some kind of like solution for the company in terms of data warehousing and BI afterwards. So I see a question from a student first. Maybe you can
Yes,
answer the
sure.
question.
No, happy to help, and yes, please provide the contact. It's a big area, and I understand you're starting, and you've seen the analytics curve, maturity model. I mean, and there's so many steps, and architecture is quite complex, but it's good to start step by step. It's not it's not a complex world. Let's go to David's question about happy to go back to the architecture. So if you go and look for kind of blueprint for architecture around the data analytics, you might come across different models. Okay. But if you look at it, you will see some patterns in terms of the architecture. There will be always a data source, mostly represented on the left. It's all the data source from where you're getting the data. So like Suraj was telling, it can be databases, the most common, Oracle, SQL, and then these are the structured one. You have the unstructured one, like MongoDB type of stuff. So all the data, where the data is. Often the data can even be on Excel, right? On an Excel sheet, CSV files, whatever the source, okay? So this is on the left, mostly these are the data sources. Now, you're doing the ETL stuff, which is very good. To organize the data, you need to pull the data from the data sources. So ETL will come between acquire and organize. Okay, so you pull data from the data source and then you organize it. Because when you're doing the ETL, so extraction, transformation, and loading, so when you're doing transformation, you are kind of arranging, organizing the data so that you can put it eventually in your tables, load it in your tables. You would clean the data, if they're garbage data, null rows, things like that. Okay, so you organize your data. And the most common word when you talk about organizing and storing is data warehouse. So you obviously, people store it in the data warehouse, and then when you store it in the data warehouse, there's additional kind of complexity. You would hear about the normalization concept, like the modeling part, words like data mods, things like that. So it's not a complex world. Just think about I pulled it from somewhere, I kind of rearranged it, organized. Now I'm storing it in the data warehouse. Okay, organized. So once you've finished this layer, well, it's always something to do around the data warehouse, because it's not something that is static, I would say. Always being updated, always some small changes, refining, tuning. So make as if you finish with the data warehouse. The next level, which is called analyze, is to use the data stored in your warehouse, use what you want, and then try to analyze, try to find information, try to find some links, some patterns, some insights on this data stored in the data warehouse. Okay, and here you have different techniques to do it. You can use the tools, the visual tools, just to connect to your data warehouse and start playing around. Some can use scripts, SQL scripts or query scripts, and query the data warehouse. Some use reporting, they just can pull the data in a table and then from there look at the data, analyze. So there's different techniques to analyze the data. Okay. And then once you've done the analysis, you've found something interesting you want to share with your end users, there's a whole thing about delivering. Now it's been developing and it's quite interesting area. A lot of people like this part in data analytics, the delivery part, because there you get to use very nice visual tools, charts, colors, and even there's something that is growing nowadays is called infographics. So a very simple, nice picture with some data and graphics to tell a story. You see here in delivery, there's storytelling, so you're telling a story. All the hard work that you did putting the data from the different sources to organize the data, to analyze it, you just summarize it in your as a story to tell your end users what you found. But of course, now delivering, there's that part. Even there's more complex part like API. So some people want to make money out of the data, the analysis that they've done. So they would expose it in portals or in form of APIs that can be consumed. And they will tell you for free, you can access this data. For further analysis, you have to pay me, right? So all the delivery part. And what I stressed out in my presentation is that part at the bottom, the manage and govern. Because all that is on top, you won't rely on it if you're not sure about this part, the governance part, because you have to trust the data. There's lots of data coming up. In our daily life, you hear a lot of statistics, a lot of things. But if you're not sure about the source, if you're not sure about how it was brought to you, you would doubt it. Because imagine they say that data is at the core. There's lots of decisions being made around the data. But if you're not sure, you would not trust making a kind of big decision based on some data that you're doubting of, right? So that's important. That part, manage, govern, security is very important. We've heard about all these stories with Facebook and others, how important is to manage security of the data that you're using. So this is a kind of a blueprint architecture. This one is from Gartner, but if you go and look from other sources like Microsoft or big like IBM or others, Accenture, you would see it's kind of same blueprint high-level architecture. Hope clarified, David, regarding the architecture part, which is a very important part of data analytics. So I would, David, if you need help, reach out to me. I will give you a priority because you were the first one to ask a question. But please, guys, if you have any questions, either in this session or Suraj will give you my contact. You can reach out to me. I told Suraj eventually what I'm looking at is also build our team. So currently at the company we have 3 persons, and we have so many projects, and we want to bring in more students that are passionate around data analytics around this area. So happy to be connected if you're interested. Good, Suraj, if think the team is still feeling a bit shy, but
yeah, thank you, Neetish. No, anyways, we could have discussed a lot because whatever you have mentioned, like what you just talk about, this kind of pipeline, it's definitely this is a module, but I can have the overall view about the module, but the students don't have it right now. But at the end of the day, they would need to go through all those phases. Okay.
yes.
Maybe just one thing, maybe before we go, like from your experience, okay. Right now students are dealing with internal and external data. Okay? And in your talk, right now we give more emphasis upon external data, social media, and so on and so forth. Okay, but can you just maybe give some tips how to be able to recognize internal data, external data, how it can be used, and so on.
Yes, sure. So maybe let me quickly just bring this in about the data, internal, external, the data. So this is a big challenge in this area, like I mentioned, in terms of internal data and external. So publicly available data, it will be exposed. Of course, you will have access to it, either for public portals, or you would see their open API, or even if you go on certain websites, they mostly expose it. You can download the data and use it for any kind of analysis. So you really need to search for the data. Like social media data, I believe there's some of the social media platforms that really expose, not very detailed, but some basic kind of data. Like for example, Twitter. If you want to do some analysis on Twitter data, you can have access to it. You want to do analysis on, say, some text analysis on some newspaper data, this is also available. So you have techniques to go and just take all these, it could be, I don't know, PDFs that you've collected from newspapers, and then you can have techniques to extract this information and do analysis. Some of these social media platforms are becoming more conservative. I think like Facebook now is not readily accessible to have certain types of data you can capture, but not really available. Because what's happening is some companies are buying this data and developing their own tools, right? So, for example, if we talk about social media, you would see there are tools that are available that say that, yeah, I will provide you social media analysis by capturing data from all the social media platforms, all the news. So they're developing tools and selling them, right? Like IBM had this Watson social media. They were selling the tool. They give you some for free, and then to access more deeper kind of analysis information, you have to pay for it. Okay, so like in our area, for example, some of the trade data is available. They publish it, so you can go to the public portals and download it. But there are also some other kind of information, like if you want, for example, to get access to shipping data, or even what is being transported for air cargo. This is not readily available. You have to pay to get that kind of data. Okay, so it's always a kind of a challenge to get access to data. But if tomorrow you're doing, say the student is involved in a project and they are working with a company, okay, in that project. That company, you can then, they have, like I said previously, they have their own private data, so they can give you access to that. Obviously, they would filter out what is very sensitive, but they have this data, so they have, within the company, will have access to this kind of private data to work and do your analysis. But these companies will never expose their private data to others because of competitors, because of privacy. They don't want others to use their data and make make any kind of analysis that can be eventually penalize their own private companies. So all this is happening around this data capture world with challenges. And yeah, I hope I answered. This is what you wanted me to highlight, Suraj. I don't know if I'm a bit off track.
Yes, yes. No, no, it's good. No, the idea is like you are giving your
Yes.
or your perspective, and this is what I wanted really the students also to be exposed, not just look at the
Okay.
theoretical things. Okay.
And maybe one last point around this is surveys, or in our world, consultancy work, what we do, what we see now, there's a lot of data collection through surveys, because it's not easy to get data, even to go out on the public and get their sentiment. This is how we collect the data. We run surveys, and you have companies specializing on that. We're currently doing a project in Mauritius. We have to pay a company, and they tell us that for each line of record they're going to give us, they would charge like 300 rupees for that. You see that it's some of challenges in getting access to the data. It's not an easy, yeah, becoming difficult.
Very expensive.
Yes, expensive.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But for me, it's fine. Okay. So thank you, Nitish. Okay.
Yeah, pleasure.
I would share your contact details with the students. Okay.
Okay.
And I hope the students might contact you also. Might try to get into contact, and there can be like further collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. I'm happy to share the presentation. So I will share it in I think you will have access to this page. So I will
Yes.
just put the presentation here if you guys want to keep it and consult it afterwards. I will just have to convert it into PDF and then put it here for you guys. So if you want to refer to it afterwards, it's fine for me.
Okay. Thanks, Nitish.
Good. Thanks. All the best to the class, and take care. And thanks a lot again, Suraj, for giving me this opportunity to share about data analytics.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Ciao.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's the end of the class, guys. Bye.
Bye. Presentation.